Welcome, Mike. I've known Mike Wallace for some time. I think all of Burlington has known Mike. He is one of our wonderful public servants in that, Mike, you started over, well, 2 decades now. You were a counselor initially on the municipal level. And
Mike and I were counselors together for...
so you know each other very well. And
22 years.
Yeah.
22 years. It's a long time to be doing anything. So, Mike, you have that perspective, but you also have another perspective in terms of being a MP in Ottawa for Burlington, and from the political landscape, now you've moved into the real estate marketplace. Yeah. So what we're going to be doing with this format, so people understand it, is that I'm going to ask Mike a few questions, but our topic to start with is, how is Burlington doing? But before I get into that, I want to find out about Mike Wallace and how you're doing. First of all, if you don't know Mike, he has one of the most distinctive laughs in all of Halton, and our producer Joe, if you could throw up a graphic, there you go. That's the physical manifestation of it. You'll hear it hopefully occasionally when you hear some of my questions for him. But Mike, I wanted to ask you before we start talking about what Burlington is doing. In your experience, whether as a councillor or as an MP, what was your proudest moment?
Well, I had a few. Most of what I would say is the thing I'm most proud of, to be perfectly honest with you, is the quality of service that we were able to provide at my constituency office when I was the Member of Parliament. There's lots of individual things I can point to as a councillor that I was involved with in terms of saving McNichol Park, for example. Now it's the Paletta Park. That was sort of the beginning. The Performing Arts Center. I was actually actively involved in when they were going to twin Nelson Arena, and we ended up with Appleby Arena. I was actively involved in. There's a number of individual physical things in the community that I can point to, but in actual fact, at the end of the day, I think I took the most satisfaction personally from the quality of the work that my staff, and hopefully I contributed to, that we did for individuals in the riding office when you're a member of Parliament, people come to you with like real problems, and some of them are life-changing for them or their families, and we did a fairly good job, in my view, of resolving many of those issues. So that's probably the proudest. The one big item, when I first got elected federally, I had made the commitment to try to get a resolution to Randall Reef, which is a hot spot in the bay, and through even though it took me a while, and with other colleagues from around the table, including from the NDP side, we were able to get to the point where we were funding the cleanup of Randall Reef, and we were just getting started, and then last year's election happened, and I'm not there any longer, which is fine. But what makes me happy is that the Liberal government has taken on and continued on with that process, and it is moving forward, and it is happening.
But just to be clear, it is the municipalities.
Oh, it's a shared responsibility.
That are taking part of that responsibility themselves.
Even the province, it's a shared piece. But without the federal government leadership, because it is Environment Canada, we wouldn't have been there. And I think. What I learned most from that individually is that to get things done at any level, there is a process. And if you understand the process and work the process, you have an opportunity to have that process come to an answer or to fruition, to a result that hopefully satisfied whatever the concern or issue was. And I think where a lot of people kind of get hung up, they say, well, this is the problem, let's fix it now. And if they don't work the process and don't understand the process, it makes it much more of a difficult process for them. And sometimes people can get frustrated that they can't do things. But I'm convinced that whatever level you are, if you politically, whether you're at a municipal level, provincial level, or federal level, that you can make an individual difference for your riding.
Well, I know you have. I mean, just listening to that, you've had a diverse background in terms of the community. I mean, everything from cultural to balancing budgets to the environment. And to me, that's one of the reasons I wanted to make sure you were here initially, because I've got a lot of questions I'm going to ask you all over the place, diverse. Before I do that, though, I'm going to give you an opportunity. We're going to talk about this in terms of, because school is back, we are going to ask you to grade some of the things. But I'm going to ask for the first grade will not be about Burlington specifically, and we do have a Liberal MP coming on our next segment. Okay. The question for you is, so how is the Liberal government federally doing at this point as it gets closer into its midpoint?
I'm going to be, the truthful answer is this. After I lost my seat, it took me a little while to even watch the news. Like I'd spent 10 years, and it was lots of work, 5 events a weekend, and I really loved the job. And the particular part I loved was the local piece. I did love the Ottawa, going to question period, being on committee, being the chair of the Justice Committee, all those things. But I really love being the local member of Parliament, being involved in decision making there and trying to help the community. So it took me a little while, and I also had a daughter getting married this summer, and so my wife and I were the wedding planners, and so that was a nice distraction. And I would say I've just started, maybe in late summer, early fall here, that we're just really start to pay attention to what's going on in Ottawa again. And so I don't think it's really fair for me to comment on how they're doing yet. I think the public will decide on that, and there's lots of times for that to happen.
That sounds like a political.
It is, but I do believe that we need a strong, and in my view, opposition with the Conservative Party of Canada. And I have volunteered my time to work with Mr. Chong, who's a local member of Parliament, Michael Chong, who's running for the leadership of the party. So
Wellington Halton Hills.
That's right. So I think people need a choice, and I think he's the appropriate choice, and I think he can do great things for the party and for the country, and that's why I'm starting to get involved back in the loop. And so if you want to ask me that question in a year, then I might have a more succinct answer, because I just honestly haven't been paying that close attention to what's happening in Ottawa.
Well, you've always been candid in your answers, which probably marks you as a different kind of politician. But that actually suggests that, to me, that's what a lot of people are like. In other words, they're not really paying attention until it matters to them, or until something happens, perhaps closer to another election. So it's kind of like the Olympics. We only pay attention when there's a big event going on. Yeah. But in the meantime, you got to pitch in for your candidate for the Conservative leadership, for all the card-carrying members out there. So that's good news. Mark, before I get into the Burlington part, do you have any other questions?
Well,
there's a lot out there.
I'm interested. That's the first time I've heard that you're with Michael Chong, and I've interviewed Michael for a number of years at Coach Co TV up in Milton, and you're right. He is a very intelligent,
very bright,
very, very intelligent man.
He's very bright. He's very personable. And what I like about Mike, we don't always agree on everything, but he absolutely listens. And he's well researched. He understands the issues. And if he doesn't know something, he'll go and research it. And like any other researcher, there's always two sides to every coin. And sometimes we disagree on what his conclusions are on the. But he's willing to debate it, discuss it, and sometimes I think I'm right. Sometimes he thinks he's right, and but what for the country and for our party, we need someone who's inclusive, someone who's smart. He's fluently bilingual. And he's very, very good with people. And look, politics is a people's job, and at the end of the day, that's what we need in leadership.
Well, one thing that always impressed me, as I say, I did the interviews with him, that he was always fully prepared.
Yes.
When he walked into the studio. He had his facts down, nailed right down, and that made for a better interview when the individual has them laid down like that. So. Yeah.
So we'll have to see how that develops. We're going to ask you questions about how the government's doing probably in about 3 months, so we're not going to wait a year. So my last question is, before I get into the hard-boiled one, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
That's
Actually,
not correct.
Actually, it's green. But since we were talking about politics, I better say blue.
Yeah.
But green is actually my favorite color.
That's correct. So that's fine. And I went to the Barbara Walters School of Journalism, so there you go. A little.
Not going to ask him what tree he'd be if you.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, we'll do that next time.
Okay.
All right.
That's good.
So, as mentioned, I think we have time now. I can dive into some of the Burlington-oriented questions. I would like you, because it's back to school time, either before or at the end of your comments, give me kind of a grading of A, B, C, or F in terms of how these things or these people are performing. I'm going to start with.
Okay. Oh, you're naming individuals.
Not necessarily individuals. If you'd like to name names, like apparently in Ford Nation that's coming out for Christmas, you don't have to do that, but if you'd like to, I encourage it. So here's the first question.
Sure.
City Council,
Yep.
which you have strong past, and I'm sure you've been engaged watching what they've been doing over their term, 2018 election coming. How has our City Council performed?
Well, I think the City of Burlington has done pretty well over the years with their council. I don't agree with. So let's talk about the current council.
Okay.
Let's talk about the 6 of them, Mike.
6.
Yes, because you were instrumental in
there's 7.
bringing that forward.
You don't count the mayor as part of council?
6 members of council. And
oh, you keep the mayor separate. Well, I keep them as one. So they're one.
They're one
group.
vote each.
One vote each. So they're all one group to me.
Irrelevant how many you pushed for a smaller council.
That's correct. And if you look, and look, that's a whole different show.
Yeah,
and I can explain,
I know. I just wanted to throw
but
that in.
I'd say Burlington's been pretty well served by its councils. I think it's being relatively well served. I don't agree with everything that they're doing, but that's politics. Like, why it would be really odd if you agreed 100% with everything that your city council is doing, because it's 7 individuals making decisions. So there are some things that I would agree with, some things I wouldn't, some things I think they could have done differently. But overall, I think they have the best interests of the community. I think they care about Burlington, and I think they're working really hard on a vision piece. Like their strategic plan is like 25 years long. That might be a bit long in my view, but that's a vision, not a strat plan in my view. But they have an idea of what they want to accomplish, and they're working. To be successful, I think you need council to at least work together. You debate something, if you lose, you move on to the next item, and if you win, you move on, and you don't hold grudges against each other. And I don't think that's happening on this council, and not that I can, from where I sit, that I see that happening. So I think they're working pretty well together, and they're not unanimous on most things, or on some things, and but that's what politics is all about.
All right. That was a very diplomatic answer, and I'm going to come back to it in a moment. Do we have to take a break now?
No.
Oh, no, you're giving the break
I'm just saying that time is
running
moving
by.
on.
Eh?
So you'll give these in 20 words or less answers for us. You brought him up. Mayor Rick Goldring.
Yes.
How's he doing in terms of the leader of the council? One vote, absolutely.
Right.
Keeping it together. Keeping in mind, too, one of the very public concerns was how council got along in the previous term. His job, I think, one of the things he wanted to do was have a coherent and collaborative council. You think he's got that today? Well,
I think, he's in his second term. I think there was some challenges of when the council first formed in his first term with its cohesiveness before he got there might have been questionable. So there was a little bit of a hill for him to climb. I have to be upfront about it. The mayor is a friend of mine. I consider Rick a friend, and I think he's doing a decent job as mayor. He has it's a difficult position because you are only one vote, and you may have a vision of where you want to do on a certain policy area or a certain area of development for the city, and you have to bring everybody on board, and it doesn't always work, and you got to be prepared to win or lose a few battles. But I think overall, I would give Rick a very high grade for the work that he's done, and I think be frank with you, was relatively green when he first started, if you don't mind me saying it that way.
He ran for the Green Party.
Yeah, well, but green as a mayor in politics.
Yeah,
right.
But he's really developed over the last number of years. I think he's doing a decent job for our city.
Was that a B plus?
That would be at least a B plus.
And how about council as a whole, including the mayor? Would you give them a B?
I would say that as a team, they're working as a team, not always agreeing on everything, which is fair. So I think there's still a B plus.
Room for improvement.
Well, there's always room for improvement. Even if you're a lawyer, there's room for improvement.
Well, you're right.
He said he was going to get that in one way or the other.
Can we go for a break now?
Not yet. You got to sweat that one.
All right, I got to sweat that a little bit.
I was hoping that was the last word.
No, I got a whole bunch of areas. But I do have one quick topic I wanted to have. I think one of the key issues always in terms of being a politician or a leader of any organization or community is hearing from constituents.
Right.
And civic engagement was also one of those issues which the last two councils adopted a report called Shape Burlington. They've tried to reach out through social media to improve their communications. Giving it a grade, have there been marked improvement in terms of civic engagement in Burlington?
Yeah, I think they've done more and more. Every council has improved their outreach. I remember when I first got on council with Mark, there was no newsletter even or nothing to the community or to your constituents. Myself and Bob Wood was my running mate when we had 2 councillors per ward, and we put out a newsletter to everybody. It was at the beginning, and as social media has taken over, and Burlington people are really engaged in policy and what's happening. So it's actually relatively easy in the engagement side to get people involved. The trick is, Brian, is you can't hear from the same people all the time.
Right.
You have to have a method of saying, okay, you have to be able to go down my street, my block, and I can guarantee you nobody on my block has been involved in any community group in terms of engagement.
Right.
That's just not their thing, but we need to reach out to those people, and we need to continue to find methods to talk to people who are not necessarily having the political slant to, and I don't mean in a
but that's
slant to be able
at
to go
all
to.
levels.
That's at all levels.
Every level.
Every level. But I think I think this city council has done a very good job of continuing that process and reaching out, and there can be more, and you have to be frank and honest with people. Are you telling them information? Are you providing information? Or are they actually having input to decision making? And that is a tricky thing to do, because they don't all the general public doesn't always have the same information that those in elected office.
And on that note, Mike, I want to thank you for joining us here on the first of the season of hashtag the issue.
Okay.
Social media plays a big part, and we try to engage the audience as well. I think you wanted to mention something about Mike coming back.
Well, Mike is coming back. I think I mentioned early on, you're going to be one of the co-hosts here. So you get to sit on this side of the table or that. But I think it's terrific because clearly you bring a wealth of experience and knowledge of multiple issues that affect the community, and not just in Burlington, but across Halton and Canada. So I'm looking forward to watching.
So people who want to hear more from Mike Wallace have got to tune in every week until he's the co-host.
That could take a little while, but keep coming back.
And
You'll be here.
not a problem. So we're going to take a break right now.